Hi, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today I am doing a little update on the planetary transits of the week. We're getting into a big couple of days worth of astrological transits as the moon is about to create a kind of T-square energy in the sign of Cancer between that big stellium in Capricorn, including Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn, as Mars retrograde is moving into the square with Pluto. So the moon is really going to be triggering that dynamic over the next couple of days. And we're also going to recap a little bit about Mercury opposite Uranus, which is just separating right now. So let's go ahead and take a look at the real-time clock. Okay, so on the real-time clock today, here's what we've got. You can see that the moon is in Cancer, and that we have the sun in Libra. We've got Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto. Got to plug my outer planets back in here. Sorry, guys. Neptune, Pluto. Here we go. So, and you can see that Mars retrograde is in Aries. Excuse me. So, first of all, this is creating a kind of grand cross configuration, a sort of cardinal grand cross configuration. Very powerful dynamic over the next couple of days. So here's what to watch for in terms of the actual timing. So if we take this forward about a day from right now, you're going to see that Mars at 22 Aries is moving through the square with Pluto at 22 Capricorn. Now that's happening between today, tomorrow. It will last into Saturday. At the same time, you can see that the sun is walking into the square with Jupiter and the opposition to Mars. So this is actually this T-square energy getting triggered by the moon right now, or this grand cross energy getting triggered by the moon, is going to play out throughout the course of about the next week. This is just sort of the tip of the iceberg, but this is, you could say, that a major flashpoint or a major sort of trigger point for this huge configuration. Now watch what happens. If I take it forward one more day, then I'm going to start seeing the moon in Cancer, and this is Friday into Saturday. And you can see the moon in Cancer is going to move through the square. This is a last quarter moon square, and then oppositions to all of these planets. So the moon is acting as a trigger for Mars and Pluto. The sun getting into the square with all the planets in Capricorn and the opposition to Mars. So this is called a cardinal grand cross, and it's not happening all exact, but it's close enough. If we move forward from here just a little bit, watch what happens over the next couple of days. We're getting into close to the dark moon, the balsamic moon by this point, which usually can be, it's a time where we're really shedding the weight of the lunar cycle and a very deep level of letting go and endings. And we have that happening right as the sun is opposing Mars and starting to move into the square with Pluto. And that is then going to sort of perfect. You can see the perfection happening. This is the middle of next week, right as the sun is coming through to make a new moon in Libra, and that new moon squares Pluto and is just past the opposition to Mars. I mean, it's just between now and the end of next week, there's a lot of fireworks, astrologically speaking. So, if that's not enough, by about the end of next week, you're going to see Venus getting into an opposition with Neptune. Now, that's a little faster. It's not as dialed into absolutely everything that's going on, but it is certainly it's certainly another transit to just throw in the mix. Okay, now, if you want to see, and we're going to go over this a few more times, but if you want to see how crazy this really is, this weekend, remember Uranus, in the meantime, if you go back to today, Uranus just passed through an opposition, or Mercury, just passed through an opposition to Uranus in Scorpio. Now, as we go forward over the weekend, Mercury is going to station and turn retrograde by about mid next week as well. And what is it doing? It's turning retrograde in an opposition with Uranus. Remember that Mercury is in Mars's sign, and Mars is also retrograde, going through this incredible series of transits over the next week and a half. So this is arguably, I would put this up there with some of the top couple of weeks of the year, if not, maybe you could argue along with some of those transits in early January, when Saturn and Pluto actually got together and conjoined. This is right up there in terms of the most intense astrology of the year. So I'm kind of personally, I'm kind of looking forward to having all this in the rear view, because it's been really stressful. And for me, it's definitely been, there's been some real stressors as well. I think it's always helpful to share a personal story here or there if it matches with the astrology. And I will tell you that with Mercury opposite Uranus, we experienced someone trying to steal some cyber information and like identity theft. So luckily it turned out okay, but it was like we definitely had to put a what do you call it? You know, when you put a hold so that no one can open any new credit cards under your name and stuff like that, because we basically found out that someone stole some of our data. And then I got a message in the mail from a hospital that I had to go to, like, I don't guess it was, gosh, was it 2019 June when I had my infamous kidney stone. And that hospital had a data breach, and I was one of the people apparently that got a letter saying that my data had been part of a bunch of data that was compromised at the hospital, and would include, you know, I guess all of my personal data, but no payment information. But you know, your personal data is still your personal data. So it was weird. It was like my wife had something happen to her, and then I had something happen to me that both had to do with sudden disclosure, revelation of like cyber crime, cyber theft, blah, blah, blah. In the case of Uranus opposite Mercury, this energy is, I mean, it's within 2 degrees and Mercury is stationing to turn retrograde. So you can bet that there's going to be some real curveballs and unexpected things coming up all the way. I mean, look at, you don't get Mercury clear of that opposition to Uranus about 3 degrees until October 22nd. So you've got arguably about 2 weeks from right now with Mercury in a very close opposition with Uranus not moving much and turning retrograde, while there's this very explosive energy coming from the Sun, Mars, and the stellium in Capricorn. I mean, that is just very, very dynamic reversals of circumstances, twists of fate and fortune, and usually the more erratic, unpredictable kind of qualities. And yeah, different kinds of cyber issues, cyber fraud, cyber theft, all kinds of technological issues that could have to do with thievery or theft. Both Mercury and Uranus are known for being associated with theft. Oftentimes Uranus is associated with theft through a kind of Promethean theme, stealing the fire from the gods, the original insight that leads to a technological revolution, but then we question whether or not the information or technology is good, or, you know, almost like Frankenstein, like, are you creating a monster, or, you know, are you using insight and knowledge to advance, you know, the good of all people, or, you know, just questions about what constitutes a good use of information, or what constitutes a breach of trust or security or something like that. It's definitely these questions around you know, cyber technological data information, that kind of stuff will probably be really on the radar over the next at least couple of weeks. With election season here in the United States, like, that would seem to suggest that there could be some of these themes or topics spilling over into concerns about the election. But at any rate, not that that's anything that lots of people haven't been already thinking about, but the Mercury-Uranus symbolism certainly fits that pretty well. Now, in terms of, again, like where we are right now and what's happening, one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of people are dealing with back issues or muscle or joint problems. And sometimes that happens as well as headaches or migraines. That sometimes happens when the sun is opposite Mars. Mars is retrograde. What to speak of it creating this kind of T-square energy with Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter. Weird bouts of inflammation, skin irritation, back or joint problems, weird things that have to weird symptoms that have to do with inflammation or agitation, stuff like that. This often can be the result of taxing yourself or straining too much, and also sometimes someone mentioned this yesterday and I thought it was just brilliant, having to put on a front because you can't show people what's behind. what's behind the scenes, and the back may take on a strain from having to put up kind of like a false front. Wow, that is just a really nice way of looking at it. Someone was talking about the symbolism of back pain, and I don't know, maybe it was like Chinese medicine or something like that. At any rate, so watch for those, just that the like, when there's so much pressure like that, the things that hold everything together can be in danger of being compromised. Joints, ligaments, tendons, kind of the things that keep everything holding together. And we say that because a sun in Libra, a sign that represents harmony and things working together cohesively, a Venus ruled sign, that rules balance. And that sun is being sort of accosted by the malefics in the next week and a half, and is already moving into that dynamic with Mars. So, that's where you're going to get some of the headaches, inflammation, almost just like there's another hexagram in the I Ching that comes to mind, and I'm not going to remember it, but if someone does remember it, please tell me which number it is. It's the one about the ridgepole sagging, critical mass, I think it's called. I just can't remember it's not 33. I can't remember. But at any rate, this particular hexagram of the I Ching talks about that moment where it's like something's got to give, something has to blow, something, and you don't want it to be one of the structural supports. If you can manage to, reinforce something or take the pressure off from something, but be careful about that. Things reaching kind of a critical turning point where something has to give or something has to yield or compromise. Otherwise, the potential for something to break apart or kind of explode or be met with violence. And the idea that is also that this turning point may have to do with things that have been sitting below the surface suddenly coming up and being revealed, things that we've been trying to hide suddenly being disclosed, and that triggers this kind of major turning point. So that's what I would watch for, both in the collective and in our own lives over the next few days, especially as the moon in Cancer between now and to say, let me just make sure I've got it. I think it's Saturday, but yeah, it's going to be now into like Saturday to Thursday morning here in Central Time Zone, all the way to like Saturday afternoon, late afternoon. That's when this kind of grand cross energy is coming through. And again, the pressure is really building. That pressure continues all the way through next week, and will be just this mounting sense of tension and potential trouble and stress. And some things, remember, the sun wants harmony. The sun is trying to work things out. The sun is also in its fall. You have Mars and Saturn as a kind of pressure cooker with a lot of effort and limitation, frustration of will, discipline and perseverance, themes like that, kind of cooking in that direction. And then this moon in Cancer over the next couple of days that's coming through, looking for softness, looking at the vulnerable kind of underbelly of things. So a pretty unique set of tensions to be sort of boiling in the next couple of days. And then Uranus is turning retrograde pretty shortly as well. So, or excuse me, Mercury is turning retrograde pretty shortly as well. So that's what I have for today. I wanted to just give you a brief sort of breakdown of where everything is at currently. And we will be revisiting these transits at least a couple more times over the next week or so, but just so that you keep updated on where things are at. I also have a video that I'll be sharing with you guys that comes from my, it's sort of a hybrid video that's a crossover between my Bhakti work. There's a private Bhakti channel that I have. If you visit my website, nightlightastrology.com, you can sign up for it. It's free, and you can get tons of content that's just about yoga, spirituality, yoga philosophy, Bhakti yoga in particular. Sometimes I get questions that cross over between spiritual and astrological themes. Recently, someone asked me, how to bring the topic of spirituality or God or divinity into an astrology reading, or if they should or shouldn't. So I made a crossover video just to basically give people a little taste of what the Bhakti content I create is like, so that if you're interested, you can go. And I kind of put that, I kind of compartmentalize that a little bit for people who want to go deeper into that. And occasionally I do crossover videos like this. So there will be a video talking about God and Bhakti and astrology, probably coming out in the next day or two, if not today. And just to give you a sample of that, don't forget also that my new class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, starts on November 14th. We're filling up. There's still room left if you want to sign up. It's a year-long course. We have 30 classes on the year with guest speakers, 12 additional guest speakers that come in. So you got 42 classes if you count those, and then breakout tutoring sessions. There's tons of guided exercises and homework and forum discussions and bonus material and optional quizzes. And you can take a certification test at the end to get a little certificate if you want to do that. Good for your resume if you're trying to become a reader for people. The course is designed to help you develop the ability to read charts, but many people take it just because they love astrology and it's a hobby and they want to have a more structured learning experience. So if any of this is interesting to you, you can participate live or remotely. We have people from all over the world that participate, but you can be live for the webinars or watch the video replays afterward. There are payment plans for people who need it. There's an early bird rate, save $500 off if you pay up front. There's also a need-based tuition for people who are out of a job, especially due to COVID-19, or who are single parents, or any number of other qualifying factors that may help you if you need it. Don't like to price anyone out of astrological learning. So check it out. If you have any questions, email me at info@nightlightastrology.com. Otherwise, check everything out on my website, nightlightastrology.com. And in the meantime, please tell me how you're doing with this transit. It's a pressure cooker. And I have been seeing, I think both in the collective and in our personal lives, you're going to see that this is one of the more pivotal moments of 2020. If it can't get more so already, for many people, the next week or so is going to be a very dynamic turning point. Get that turning point energy because it's Cardinal that we're working with right now. Cardinal implies turning points, meaning you're kind of suddenly doing a 180, but there's this sense of it being connected to something that's cooking below the surface that's about to show itself or reveal itself or just kind of pop up unexpectedly. So we'll ride through it together. Tell me your stories in the chat box. I'd love to hear from you guys, and we'll see you again soon. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.